America is a controversial country, more in the modern age than in the past. However, most of our public will agree that the 1960s and 70s presented the time of most civil unrest for those who are living amongst it. The reason for all of this riling was America's involvement in the Vietnam War and the unintentional drafting of innocent people into the war effort by political decree. In order to accurately record America and Great Britain's public opinion on this, we must, as curious people of the future, look back to records as recorded by popular groups in the 1960s and 70s. Some of these groups include names such as the Beatles, Joni Mitchell, Cream, Santana, but the three groups that we'll analyze today, provided by my group members, will be a record called Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, as released in 1968, a record called Fortunate Son, as released by Creedence Clearwater Revival in 1969, and a record called War Pigs, as released by a group called Black Sabbath in 1970.
Hi, I'm Jed, and I'm going to talk to you about a song called Sympathy for the Devil, written in 1968. The Stones originally released this song, and we're going to call it The Devil Is My Name. It was also written as a folk song instead of a samba song. Jagger claims that this song is more of looking at the dark side of a man other than the celebration of the devil. This song was also written during some of the most chaotic events since World War II. Let's see, so some of the historical events mentioned in this song are the Holocaust, the crucifixion of Christ, the Kennedy assassinations, World War II, the Russian Revolution, and so on. Also, this song, when they performed it at the Altamont Speedway in 1969, when they performed Sympathy for the Devil, the crowd was a lot more chaotic than they expected, and there was a very brutal stabbing. The band did not perform this song for 7 years prior, or 7 years after, I'm sorry, just because of the public outcry. Also, Robert Kennedy was assassinated shortly after this song was released. Even though the Stones did not anticipate so many chaotic events to occur during the song's release, it was still seemed that way wherever it was performed or mentioned in this time period. Chaos would follow. Fast forward to 1994, Guns N' Roses also used this song as basically their breakup song. It was even quoted by Slash that if you want to know what a band sounds like before they break up, to listen to Sympathy for the Devil by Guns N' Roses. Next up, we have Joey talking to you about Fortunate Son.
Hi there, I'm Joey. The song Fortunate Son was written by Creedence Clearwater Revival and John Fogerty as their main lead singer in the year 1969. Originally, the song was about the protests of the Vietnam War. So the biggest thing that happened was a lot of these rural American people were very anti-war because they knew that the reasons for them fighting weren't valid. But as said in the hook in the chorus of the song is, it ain't me, I ain't no senator's son, it ain't me, I'm not the fortunate one. The biggest thing that they're talking about is that the majority of the people that were drafted in the war and were selected to be picked in the war were not these governors, these politicians' children, or the politicians themselves, and yet the politicians are the ones that are saying, oh, we have to fight in this war, we have to be the ones that fight, but the people who are against it clearly are the ones that are forced to go into the war, and they thought it was very unfair and unjust, so they thought that writing this song could be a good anthem and outcry to the governors and politicians of America. So the next person we have is Mike, talking about the song War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
Hey everybody, I'm here to talk to you about the song War Pigs by Black Sabbath, released in 1970. So War Pigs, widely considered to be one of the best heavy metal songs of all time, was written by Geezer Butler, the bassist for the band. He wrote the lyrics and most of the song. He basically described the original title for the song was going to be Walpurgis, which is the Satanic Christmas. The idea behind this was that war was the big Satan in this event, and that it should be stopped at all costs, really. Throughout the song, he talks about different meanings of like how generals are just pushing forces into the war, and how basically the rich start the war for their own benefit, and they just send the poor to fight them because they're expendable. This whole concept was heavily inspired because of Vietnam, because they saw similar events happening, and Geezer was very against this concept. Even though Ozzy Osbourne claims that the song was really just about anti-war in general, but Geezer Butler clearly states he wanted it to be about Vietnam as a whole. So you can see this throughout lyrics like generals gather at black masses, or generals gather in their masses, just like witches at black masses, comparing them to kind of the satanic followers. And you hear more lyrics like politicians hide themselves away. Why should they go out and fight? They only started the war. Just send the poor instead. They'll take care of everything else. So that's all I have to say about that. Next up, we have Cormac to end it all.
Overall, these three songs conclude how the world and artists at the time were protesting the war and were very against soldiers being sent off to basically die in the Vietnam War. Sympathy Devil was written at the most chaotic time during the war and is referencing the devil as being war. Fortunate Son is about politicians who forced lesser fortunate men to have to forcibly to fight in the war, while they didn't have to and their sons were fortunate enough not to have to. And War Pigs was originally Satanic Christmas and was also about politicians setting off soldiers to the war. And so in conclusion, the Vietnam War brought many hardships to the people of the world, and these three songs do a very good job in portraying them.